Hi there, I'm Lucille Greeff and I am one of the partners in Aephoria. So I'd like to tell you a little bit more about the Enneagram. Let's start with that word, Enneagram. It's actually Greek. Ennea means the number 9 and gram is a model. So it's a model of 9. The Enneagram's been around for a couple hundred years. The Enneagrams come into modern use through the work of Eschazo and the psychiatrist Claudia Naranjo. There's also a process application of the Enneagram that is slightly different from what we're mostly going to be talking about here, which has to do with using the Enneagram as a map for understanding processes, and that comes from the work of Greeff. When we look at the 9 different points on the Enneagram, each of them represents a way of looking at the world, a core motivation. So it's not so much about behavior and a set of descriptors that helps us to find our style. It has to do with the reason why we do things. And that forms through our socialization and our experiences in our lives. It's a little bit like the formula we develop for having our needs met. Our Enneagram styles are really helpful. They help us to navigate a complex world. They also can be a little bit problematic, holding us back, leading to us putting ourselves into boxes. And the core invitation of the Enneagram is to help us get out of those boxes and live beyond the narrow confines of our socialization and our upbringing. So there are 9 different points, each of them an archetype, a way of thinking about how we get our needs met, a why, a core motivation. So I'm going to talk you through those 9 different styles. You can really start anywhere on the Enneagram. No point is better than the other. And generally, when we get to know our Enneagram styles, there's something about it that feels really comforting because it helps me see myself in the mirror quite clearly. And at the same time, it can make me uncomfortable. It's almost like I can see myself up close and personal, as though I'm looking in one of those beauty mirrors where I can see the blemishes. And I might prefer to turn away from myself in that kind of way. And that's what we normally do if we're not living a conscious life. So let me talk you through them. We'll start with the gut center. That's Enneagram 8, 9, and 1. And these 3 styles all have in common with each other that they are gut or body-based styles and have a strong relationship that they need to resolve with how they express anger into the world. So Enneagram 8 is the tough protector. And here the core motivation is that I want to be strong and express my capability into the world. I don't like feeling weak and vulnerable. The core story there is something like the world is a jungle where only the strong survive, and I'm strong. Don't mess with me. Next, we'll move on to the Enneagram 9 style. This is the adaptive diplomat, the perspective of peacekeeping in many ways. Here, the core motivation is I want to live a life and create a world that is harmonious, where we minimize turmoil and conflict. It's a little bit like a Bob Marley or a John Lennon song. If only we could all be a little bit less assertive and listen more to each other, the world would be a peaceful place. And that's what the Enneagram 9s are going for. Enneagram 1, this is the perspective of the meticulous judge or the perfectionist. Here, the core motivation is to be a good, responsible person that does the right thing. And that means I'm quite afraid that if I relax, I might in some way not only make mistakes, but go bad. So I'm really focused on keeping things together so that things don't fall apart. Next, we'll move over to the heart center, Enneagram 2, 3, and 4. And these are all styles that really want to express themselves in the world and find their unique identities. In the heart center, there's different relationships we have with our feelings. Whether I'm feeling other people's feelings too much, or whether I'm avoiding my feelings because I'm quite sensitive to them, or maybe making meaning out of my feelings and getting stuck in them. Enneagram 2, that's our supportive cheerleaders, are the people that say, I want you to like me. And I've got a strategy for this. I know that if I'm helpful and kind and there for you and minimize my own needs, you're more likely to appreciate and like me, and more likely to not reject me. So here, the core motivation is to be that kind of selfless and giving person that other people rely on. Enneagram 3, here we have our ambitious taskmasters. They're the ones that look at the world and say, there are two kinds of people, winners and losers, and I'm not going to be a loser. I want to be successful, I want to get ahead, I'm going to show other people that I am valuable and that I add value into my work world and my family life. So these are very ambitious, task-oriented people. There's always another goal to go for. I'm always moving forward and getting ahead. And sometimes I don't mind who I step on and how I need to adapt in order for me to reach those goals. Then our Enneagram 4s, this is my point on the Enneagram as well. These are our sensitive mavericks. The individuals who say, I want to be my unique and authentic self in the world. And somehow I get wrapped up in this place where it feels like it's easy to lose myself. And sometimes I get wrapped up in a story where I feel that something's missing or something's wrong with me. So I have to keep expressing my unique and finding my unique self. This might mean that I differentiate myself from the group and kind of position myself as an outsider, even inside the groups that I belong to. In a play on the Descartesian view of I think, therefore I am, Enneagram 4s are the place that say I feel, therefore I am, on the Enneagram. Lastly, let's move on to the thinking center, Enneagram 5, 6, and 7. Now these are individuals that are very head-based types, so a lot of mental energy being expended in different ways. And what we see with the thinking types is they have a particular relationship that they need to resolve with anxiety and particular strategies that we use the head for to process or avoid my anxiety. Enneagram 5, this is the place of the quiet observers. Here the core motivation is to maintain my independence, to be self-sufficient, to control how I expend my energy. I want energy and time and space to make sense of an overwhelming world. And therefore I need to minimize my contact with others. You know, once you have a couch, people come and sit on it, and then they just drain you of your energy and time. And that's how Enneagram 5s look at the world. They have amazing maps in their minds that helps them make sense of complex issues and how the world works. But a lot of that's private, inside the castle walls. Enneagram 6 are vigilant questioners. These are the individuals that look at the world and say, if you let your guard down, bad things will happen. So best be prepared, plan. Don't just have a plan A, have a plan A, B, C, D, and E, just in case things go wrong. Now, sometimes Enneagram 6s are misunderstood and people think that they're actually negative. Most Enneagram 6s I've worked with say, I want the good things to happen. It's just that I know that the best way to make sure that happens is by making sure that none of the bad things happen. So that's where a lot of my energy goes. Enneagram 6s are very cautious about trusting and who they trust, and can be very sensitive to having their trust broken. Lastly, our Enneagram 7s are positive dreamers. These are the individuals that walk around with a t-shirt that says, too much of a good thing is wonderful. My core motivation there is to experience and to express my freedom into the world. And I do so by focusing on what's good, what's right, what's positive, what's possible. So it's a very future-oriented position on the Enneagram, and I'm definitely not going to allow boredom and painful things and a lot of admin to bring me down. I want to be free in the world, and I want to express that in a positive way. So that gives you a quick run around the Enneagram. maybe you're already starting to think, well, where do I fit in? What's my style? Once you get to know the Enneagram better, and there's many ways of finding your style, one of the ways that we offer at Aephoria is through our Aephoria Identity Map Assessment, which is a short, effective assessment that within a number of questions gives you an idea of where your starting point on the Enneagram is. Once you know where you start from, there are many opportunities for you to grow through the Enneagram. Obviously, the first benefit is that we get to know ourselves better. And the Enneagram offers an integrated archetypal view of who we are. It's a lot easier to work with this kind of view than to say, oh, am I an introvert or an extrovert? Am I more neurotic or more relaxed? This is when you work with separate personality traits. The Enneagram gives you an integrated view and a doorway into really understanding not just what you do, but why you do it and your deeper motivations. The Enneagram also helps us to understand our defensive behaviors. It helps us to grow and bring more of the positive of what we have to offer to the world, and it helps us to do so without maybe the collateral damage when we're less conscious and we're living a less conscious life. I've seen leaders make great improvements, not just in how they lead, but in how they show up in their organizations and the influence that they're able to express in their organizations through using the Enneagram as a mechanism for growth and development. The Enneagram is also really powerful in helping us to navigate interpersonal relationships. It's not just about understanding me, but it's also about understanding the other person. And especially if there's conflict and what we traditionally call personality differences in a team, you can use the Enneagram to build bridges between individuals. The Enneagram is also really effective in bringing larger groups into greater effectiveness and health in their relationships. Teams across the world work with the Enneagram, not just to get to know each other and build social capital, but also to figure out how to solve problems collectively more effectively. If you're curious, start your Enneagram journey. I'm sure that the Enneagram can be a great companion for you in your own growth and development journey.